Hey, what's up, and welcome back to the channel. As you know, I am a diagnosed narcissist, but before I say the things that I'm going to say in this video, keep in mind that I am not a licensed professional, so with that out of the way, I wanted to discuss this, and I guess what motivated this video, at least partially, is seeing a whole bunch of NPD versus BPD discourse online. I'm not going to say what specifically I was looking at, but I guess it's in pretty big controversy, it seems now, to discuss whether or not people with BPD and NPD are similar, have similarities, or anything familiar in the slightest. I mean, we obviously do because we're both, cluster B disorders, so there's going to be at least somewhat of a similarity there if we're, bunched up in the same classification of personality disorders. But this video is not so much about people with BPD. I just wanted to add that little thingy-majig there because I didn't really know what I wanted to call this video. I'm aware that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is, I suppose, splitting in a sense. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to put that in the title, but obviously, in a way, I am essentially talking about splitting. And the reason why I mentioned people with, BPD is because normally when you talk about splitting, people often commonly associate it more with people with BPD rather than MPD. But I thought this would be interesting because I do want to expand upon why I think splitting occurs in narcissists as well. Perhaps it's just a cluster B thing in general. And I guess you could also say what, brought this video into be is in one of my really old videos, somebody marked a time in it in my what it feels like to be a covert narcissist video, and they said it was a great example of splitting. So I guess you're also, if you're still if you're still watching my videos, let's say, credited for why this is here. But also, I've never really spoken about this in general, so I guess I'll just head to it. I also got a comment from a really long time viewer. If you're watching this, Emma, thanks. But well, you asked me, actually. You did ask me if um, narcissists do have something of I guess, idealization. Let's just put it at that, like similar to people with, let's say, BPD and HPD, even, where it's just like a long desiring for love. And I'm gonna say this: yes and no. I mean, what I replied to you, I guess, is gonna just be an expanding upon that. I guess I just wanted to put it all out in a video out there. Well, I mean, I'll just get to it. I'll just get to it. So the reason why I think narcissists such as myself often do split is because we do have fantasies of ideal love, but that could perhaps contradict with our preferred image to not need anybody because being dependent upon somebody looks weak, and I think that's the issue if you're a cluster B person in general, because you fail to see yourself as your own individual when you're in a relationship with somebody. Like, especially if you're a narcissist, because you're always thinking of, okay, who's on top, who calls the shots, or you think very hierarchically. Or if you're somebody with BPD, let's say you want to be subservient and, submissive to whoever it is that's your favorite person. So essentially, I think that's why narcissists and borderlines struggle in relationships, because we fail to see our own individuality in that relationship. So everything that doesn't go according to plan, it just shatters the illusion that we're desperately trying to maintain within that relationship, even through ourselves. Because I get this notion that if you're a cluster B person, you most likely have a script in your mind that you're trying to emulate. And I think everybody does to a certain extent. The only difference is that regular healthy people, like what I'll always keep saying, are typically in sync. So they don't have to, constantly be aware of the patterns in place in which they're making happen. But the problem that you have as a cluster B individual, such as a narcissist like myself or a borderline, is that you don't know who you are. You're completely empty, and your self-esteem is so basically non-existent, close to none, or extremely fragile. So the reason why narcissists and borderlines, cluster Bs in general, but in this particular case I'm going to talk from my narcissistic point of view, the reason why we split essentially is because, well, let's take it back to like the very basics. Why do you think a narcissist would crave, I guess, like an ideal love? Or why does anybody, want to pursue an ideal love in general? Because we get this idea that, oh, there's companionship, oh, there's somebody to like complete and like fulfill you. And I never really understood it up until I started thinking about it now, which is why, well, not just now, but I've always been like struggling with like relationships and stuff. And I think I finally understand to a certain extent why people say you can't fully love somebody unless you love yourself. And it heads back to, I know it sounds gross to a lot of people, but I guess like the idea of an ideal love for a narcissist is, I guess, like supply in that sense. Like that's what people are always saying online. It's a somebody that can, help maintain and regulate you. And it fulfills a narcissistic, grandiose delusion that like, oh, if this person is just gonna meet my, self-esteem needs, then um I guess in a way, I think not even just borderlines, we develop this idea in our minds. And this is why I think we're constantly like dissatisfied in relationships because the moment you feel the high in which you believe somebody completes you, you believe someone is like, meeting your failed, lack of like self-esteem, so to speak, you end up, I guess, being frustrated, let's just say. And this is where a lot of like the splitting happens. But then you keep coming back because that idealization of that, brings you and allures you to like what you want in the first place because kind of like what I keep saying, the self-esteem or the like lack of like healthy emotional regulation isn't there. You keep going back and forth, but then you constantly leave feeling disappointed, but then you can't get it from yourself because, like, for example, if you're a narcissist such as myself, you want to believe that you're all there and put together, but keep in mind that's what I'm saying. You want to believe that that is not who you are. You either hate yourself or you're completely nothing. So it is strange to be in this position because when you enter this like notion where you split on somebody, you can only see them as like a villain or somebody that's done a whole bunch of like wrong to you, or they're the ones that lied to you. They're the ones who you know were using you or like whatever, and then you think to yourself, oh, I'm reclaiming myself back. But then when you sit with yourself as a cluster B person, when you sit with yourself as a narcissist, and it's like when this temporary high of like superiority comes from, and I guess in a way, I mean, I only speak for my experiences at most, but I think even just for, let's say, if I'm like talking about people that have dismissive attachment styles in general, it's this weird paradox because you might wonder to yourself that like, okay, why do they keep coming back to me? Oh, if they don't like me, then it's like, or how come is it that like they're saying they don't need me, whatever, but then like they'll come back and then suddenly it's as if like nothing ever even happened. Because that's the thing when you're a cluster B person, you're stuck in modes of being. Nothing ever exists as a whole. And like back what I said, I might feel as though I'm taking myself back whenever I break up with somebody or whenever I, cut somebody off, dismiss them for whatever reason. I might feel like I'm, taking myself back. But in actuality, when I am alone with myself and I realize that, like, okay, there's just, you know, nothing there, or there's like nothing there other than like bitterness and all this like negativity, I can't even sit in it for long. But then this is just why it's like so miserable being a narcissist or being like a cluster B person like in general, because it's almost like any relationship you have, you can't trust anybody, or you're trying hard to desperately trust somebody. But like, especially like as a narcissist, like it's like you always have this like subconscious voice saying like you have to keep yourself at a distance because you can never truly trust anybody. Like at any moment they can just do a 360, abandon you themselves even, or like whatever. So I think what's very difficult is that well, I think this is obvious. Being vulnerable is very difficult. It's a but it's a risk, obviously, that you have to take in relationships in order to grow like a closeness with somebody. But as a narcissist, it's a very, very like difficult thing. And a lot of people might say that borderlines have like an easier time like submitting to other people, but honestly, I don't necessarily believe that's true. Like if you're still like in the damage of like your disorder and whatnot, then like you wouldn't split in the first place. So if you're like wondering why a lot of cluster B people keep going to you and coming back, they seem like the most loving people at like one point. Like they might call it love bombing, they might call it I don't know, whatever is the BPD equivalent, because I just see that love bombing is typically associated with narcissists more than, I don't know, any other groups of people with like a disorder or whatever. But yeah, this is the paradox essentially. And I'll admit that from the outside, it really, doesn't make any sense. But I'm hoping that like if I make this video, I'm aware, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but at least like there's like a bit of an explanation that I can give to, you people. And I think the reason why, in a nutshell, splitting happens is because, okay, if you're a cluster B person, if you're like a narcissist, you can't trust yourself to get your own needs and, self esteem and like validation met from yourself. You can't get it from yourself. You can't get it from anybody. So, where do you go? Because it kind of just feels like you're a ping pong ball and you're just like, like being like hit in like the same direction like over and over again. It's not satisfying here, so you go there. It's not satisfying there, so you go back here. And it's just such a miserable way, you know, to exist. And it's like the more you keep experiencing your life, it's like the more lost you just feel. And I'm I don't know. I mean, I told myself recently that I'm not really going to be, dating anybody or like whatever. But like, truth be told, I don't even know what steps I should take in, let's say, like getting over this. I guess I can only talk about it. I guess I can only fucking I don't know. But it's like, yeah, that's the complication, like when it comes to, like splitting, because every single time someone splits, I would say every single time a cluster B person splits, they're just desperately trying to, like find themselves in something that they're trying so hard to believe they actually exist in. So whether they do that for themselves or whether they do that like in a relationship with you, it's like people think that like we're going out of our way to just like toy with people. And sure, I'm not saying that we don't have the like mental faculties to like, let's say, do that like if we really wanted to. But and again, it doesn't necessarily excuse, I get it, like all the fuckery, but it's like kind of like what I said, if you're seeing it, like on the outside, it's so clear that like it just, it doesn't make any sense. Like from the inside, it makes just as much less of any, coherent sense for us than you on the receiving end. And yes, it doesn't justify any of, let's say, the antisocial behaviors that we might engage in, but it's like, I don't know, we have like mentally we have broken pieces inside. If you're like a cluster person, we have like broken pieces inside that we're just desperately trying to pick up, latch onto, or I don't know, we're trying to mold like, something, but it's just it's it's difficult to find out like what you're supposed to do when you don't even think you're you to begin with. And it's like, yeah, it's just a clusterfuck, and it just makes life look like, I don't know, a lie. And just like there's just so much desperation. There's just so much I don't know. All I can say is I don't remember a single time in my life where I haven't felt lost within myself, within my relationships. Just, yeah, I don't get it, and I'm not sure if I ever will. But